This is an update on the DDC Universal Controller Builder firmware thingy. I've added a lot to it lately, and I thought I'd show off the SW1 steering wheel as well in the process, since its firmware is based completely on the DDC system. That means that sort of the take home from this video could be that whatever this wheel does, your wheel can probably do it as well if it's Arduino based. So first, a little bit about the wheel. My basic idea when designing this was to have just a sturdy and good wheel for sim racing, and by that I mean I wanted a wheel that is circular. So this is basically just a section of a circular wheel. The center axis of the wheel comes directly into your palms. The grips the grips are modeled after a Sparco racing wheel, which I really enjoyed, and I just shrunk it down to a 30 centimeter diameter. I also figured I wanted as many inputs as possible close to my fingers, so that I could reach them without having to go away from the grips. So on both sides there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 push buttons that are available without letting go. In addition to that, there are some toggles. There's the standard 12 position rotary switches, 3 buttons on the top, your Hall sensor clutches, a rotary encoder at the back. This one's missing a knob, and a push button. Here is the waipu circular connector. It has a big cutout at the top for the screen behind. I really prefer the HDMI screen. Stationary, allows me to switch wheels, has a much better frame rate than the Vocore screen, much better screen in general. Since I have a spare HDMI port on my computer, that's a lot better for me, at least. But the wheel does have the PCB inside has a connection point to wire up a USB screen for this one. So if you want to have a look at the files and do some modifications to fit a screen on this one, that's definitely possible. Also, it has a lot of spare room for LEDs. It has its own microcontroller that is only driving these 4 LEDs, and there's a lot of headroom there. So far, nothing remarkable about this wheel. It's a decent wheel, but what's kind of special is what the software can do. So I'm gonna go through that. Probably the most important feature of this wheel's firmware is that it communicates with SimHub. It communicates via my plugin, so my plugin has to be installed, and that produces a bunch of properties that you can use in your dashboard editor to make some interface showing what's going on in the wheel. And these are information about different special functions and modes of switches and presets and stuff that I'll go through afterwards. While the SW1 steering wheel, of course, has its own sort of tailored support in the plugin, any DDC controller also has sort of the same, but these are more generic slots of information. They are not named after the function that they represent, and it's more like in the firmware that you build, you decide which kind of information goes to, say, B1 or E1 or There's more information about that on the wiki on the GitHub page. All right, so we're in the sim rig. First of all, I'm using a Fanatic Wheelbase. So the first wheel that I made, it is sort of tailored for the Fanatic system with regards to the quick release being bolted directly to the carbon plate. There's no circuit board or anything in the middle here. So it's sort of carved out on the back. The newer version of this wheel will have the flat back option, so that you can use any kind of quick release system for it. Just start off with some functions. You can see I've got the dashboard up here, and I've got the pointies joystick tester just to show what's going on in the wheel. The dashboard I'm using is my own dashboard, available at the SimHub forums. It's specific to iRacing. And one special feature of this dashboard is the menu system. And one of the switches on the SW1 is tailored for this menu system. This switch is the left funky switch is a 24 position switch, where the first 12 positions are mapped to the pit menu, is what I call it, and then pressing the switch up, you go to the next 12 positions, which can be used to map in-car adjustments, and then you'll be able to sort of lock the position. Then you can use the rotary not to move the position, but to give a pulse as a regular encoder. So now I'm just holding this position, and I'm adjusting the map, the fuel map value. Press it again to release it, then I'll do the throttle shape, etc., brake bias, whatever you bind to this menu. The pit menu itself has a lot of cool features, and for instance, changing tires, changing pressure of all tires, personal message to the car ahead and the car behind. You have an option to sort of avoid binding a lot of buttons to navigating the dashboard. You can just use this menu. So the pitch screen is there. There's a stopwatch, start stop, split, or resets. There are system volume adjustments. There are changing delta modes in their upper left corner, and some other fuel strategy kind of features, and also the option to set a calculated fuel to end, or fuel to have the maximum amount of laps, or clear all pit services that have been ordered. So with this switch alone, you can navigate all of this, and you actually have a spare function left and right, which I use for the pit menu and I pace menu, or pace screen, which is not available unless you actually have a race pace. Other switches, these toggle switches work a bit differently. The left toggle switch is giving pulses. You can see button number 36 is pulsing once every time I flick it, and that enables me to use it as a ignition button. The right toggle button I use for putting my launch screen on is button number 35, and it's pressed when it's up, and it's not pressed when it's down. But both of these buttons or toggles can change the way they work by being modified. So a key button on this wheel is the modifier button. This is button number 3, and by itself it works just like any other button, but when holding this and using other buttons, you change the way they work. So holding this and flicking the left toggle will put it into a regular toggle mode. So it now has to be flicked 2 times to turn the screen, the car ignition on and off. And then I can go back to, like a pulse. The same for the other one. The right toggle can be a pulse or a toggle switch. Now it's a pulse switch. And this is true also for the 12 position rotaries. This is now a regular 12 position rotary. I've pressed this button and just rotate it once. It's now an incremental switch. So now it's giving pulses counterclockwise and clockwise, just using the first 2 button numbers for the switch. I do the same again, and it's now a 12 position switch. So the same thing works for the other one. And these are now bound to ABS and traction control on this car. It's the Ferrari 488. The position of these switches can be overridden by something I call a quick switch. So if I press this one, now the ABS and traction control is 4, I press it and they both go to 12. And the value or the position that they are overridden with is defined in the firmware. This can be changed to anything you like. So this is ideal for sort of a wet button, or for Formula 1 cars, quick differential changes. In the DDC software, you can have up to 4 rotary switches that are affected, and you can change all of them or some of them with quick switches. So yeah, now they work, now they don't work, and they're overridden by this quick switch. Other things, the gear pedals, they're using a sort of a pull-push mode, which sort of the thought is that you have 2 shifters on both sides, and I'm using this push-pull mode not with push-pull shifters, but with the 2 paddles on each side, so I can gear up and down on this side, I can gear down and up on this side. If I don't want to use it like this, of course, the same way I can split them. And now these are button number 7, 8, 9, and 10. If I use it in push-pull mode, now it's 7 and 8, and it's 7 and 8. So moving on to the clutches. I use my launch screen here to show you the position of the clutch paddles, or well, not the position of the paddle, but the clutch. The right paddle in the default mode goes to 100. The left paddle goes to the bite point, no matter what. And then we have some other ones. Dynamic low. Both paddles go to the bite point, but together they go to 100. And in release 1 will take you to the bite point. The next one, dynamic high. Both paddles go to 100, so you don't have to press both to hold the clutch. And then after both has been pressed completely, you can release 1 to go to the bite point. This is the default kind of dual clutch system for the Fanatic wheels. The last one is using the wheel paddles as brake and throttle. So now I can hopefully get off the line with my foot clutch, and I can accelerate with the pedals and brake with this one. Of course, this requires you to have let's do it like this. This requires you to have a sim that supports secondary brake and throttle inputs. SimUp iRacing is one of those. There are some other features available as well for sims that support this. The wheel can do a lot of things to. I don't think my bite point is set correctly here. Regarding the bite point, there's also a system for setting the bite point. There are many ways that you can do it. The one I'll show you is with this one. So it's labeled bite. So what I do is press the bite point button. This is button number 1. It works like a normal button, but pressing this and rotating the switch will set the wheel into bite point mode. Now it's blinking green. When in this mode, the physical position of this switch tells the first sort of 10 values. Also, it's in 30, 40, 50, etc. So I want to set it to 33.2. I'll set it in position 3, and then I'll set it in position 3 again and press, and then in position 2 for the decimal value. If I wanted to set it to say 35.7, I'd set it to 3, 35.7. This actually means that you can use this system to set the bite point accurately without having any visual feedback from the dashboard. It's sort of like an old phone where you rotate the disc and into the correct physical position. Now that I've set a bite point, I'd have to turn off the traction control. Yeah. Let's see if I can turn off the traction control. So that's better. The next sort of feature that involves the secondary inputs would be a handbrake mode. This is engaged by pressing both shifter pedals at the same time and holding them for 1 second. So if I do that now, handbrake is active and the car won't go anywhere. So this is what this does. It's not an actual handbrake. It's setting the brake to 100%, releasing the handbrake by pressing the top levers for 1 second as well. The next thing I'll show you that involves the use of secondary throttle and brake inputs is the brake magic toggle. So on the left side here, there's a small toggle. If you push this, you get a set brake application. So now it's giving 10% brake application constantly, and this could help you keep your tires warm on formation laps and behind safety car, etc. And you can amp it up and down with the rotary on the back. The next one logically would be something with throttle, and that is a throttle hold function. It sort of works like a cruise control. It's on the top toggle here. It's at 100% now. I can set it down a bit. The same way, the same rotary dial on the back can change the throttle hold. And this either for just getting a brake for your feet on long straights, or you can set it to, say you set it to 97% and use it for fuel saving. It will give you always a 97% throttle at the end of the straights, for example. Another feature related to the clutch is a neutral button. And what this does is it gives a 100% clutch input. And since it gives feedback to SimHub, I've used this to make it show an N in the dashboard when you press it. So it's not actually a neutral. It's just the clutch is completely pressed. So like that. But it sort of works like a neutral in that sense. The same way as with anything else, if I don't want my neutral button, I can make it a normal momentary button. Now it's button number 4. And now it's my neutral button again. Now it does the neutral thing. What else? I think I saved the best thing for last, which is the presets. So there are 12 available presets where you can set anything, just from a byte point to the quick switch values, the value for the brake magic, for the throttle hold, what kind of button numbers buttons have. You could choose to have your neutral button on the right side for one preset and on the left side for one preset, or you could have all your buttons are neutral buttons in one preset. So you could do whatever you want with these presets, and you can toggle between them with this rotary by just holding. This is button 2. By just holding this button, you can set up your presets. You can name them in SimHub, and you can switch quickly all your setup for this car. Also the wheel, when you power it up, it will boot to the preset that this switch is in when it gets power. So I think that's that concludes the guide for this wheel. As I said in the beginning, if your wheel is, or your controller, button box, whatever, if it's Arduino based, this will work for your controller. Have a look at the wiki on the GitHub page for DDC. It has it's sort of structured like a step-by-step guide for how to make the controller work with this software, just from start to finish. It might be a bit to read up on, but it's not very complicated. So just read through it and you should be able to understand it without having any prior knowledge of coding or electronics.